Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ripstop on the Record, episode 41. I want to start out today's podcast with a very simple question for all of us here, which is, what was the very, very first thing you ever made, and how did it turn out? Fairly rapid fire. Carter, go.
Trail Day Stuff Sack Kit.
That hasn't been made yet.
No. The first thing I ever made was a stuff sack on my wife's blue sewing machine that looks like it was made for children, but somehow has a motor in it that's probably not safe. But
and, how did it turn out?
Oh, it was great. My mom said I had the gift, and I believed her.
It was good.
Yeah.
All right, Isaac, first thing you ever
made? First thing I ever sewed with a sewing machine was, because I technically count leather work as the first thing I ever made. But yes, on a sewing machine, I had a project for a college class that was a sewing machine drop basket thing. So it was basically a carry-all, a forager pouch, essentially. But then it had a pin cushion on top of it that had Velcro on the back of it, and it Velcroed to the edge of the sewing table.
Wait, the first time you sewed was when you started?
It's pretty ambitious.
Yeah. You didn't sew before you started your textiles major.
Correct.
Oh my God.
Seems smart.
And I think I got a B on the project. So
it went very well. Avery, what was the first thing you ever made?
I think the first thing I made was probably PJ pants.
Nice. Who's PJ?
and they turned out well?
Yeah, I wish I knew where they still were. They probably got donated to Goodwill, but I do still have one clothing item I made. So maybe if you guys are lucky, I'll feature it on a future podcast.
So this question entirely backfired because today's topic is intro to DIY and starting projects. And so far, I'm the only person in this room that has made something. The first thing turned out to be absolute dog water. So thanks for your good stories, but that's
don't disparage dog water like that. They deserve hydration just the same as you and I.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So the first thing I ever made was a roll top dry bag, if you will, but it wasn't actually a dry bag because I got random materials from Hobby Lobby. So they were not waterproof at all. They're bad ripstop with that weird other material. And I used tubular webbing from REI and a weird pivoting buckle and stuff. It was really, really bad. It was really fun to make, but I still have it. I look back and it's really embarrassing. None of you have ever seen it for a reason. All right. This is kind of a precursor for the conversation that will be this episode later, which is our Intro to DIY ebook, where we'll talk about how to get started and how to be successful starting your DIY journey. But before we go there, we are going to talk about our industry updates. So a few cool things that we've seen around the way so far. First, Lightweight Equipment is taking orders again. They are a Ukraine-based ultralight gear company that we've been kind of keeping tabs on after the events that have been going on for the past month or so. And we're really, really excited to see them get back to making stuff.
And they're also sending 20% from each order to humanitarian and medical aids to help their country. So part of their proceeds are going towards that, but their stuff is awesome. So check it out.
Lightness is where you are.
Is that their?
That's their. Yeah,
that's cool.
I'm a fan, dude.
Isaac, can you tell us what the URL is? We'll link all the stuff in the show notes, but for people looking, it's Lightweight Equipment, LITEWAY. They're on Instagram at lightweight.equipment. So check them out. They make some really rad stuff, and we'd obviously be really stoked to support them in that.
They have a cool logo too. I like it. It's minimalist.
They have a super sick DCF hex mid type picture on their Instagram that looks really cool.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, other industry updates. All right. So this is I think Avery, you noted this one. Give us the lowdown.
Avery's always fun.
Stuff. That's a fact.
I do. My job is literally just to find cool gear and lighten others. No, but I found this review for this new outdoor research SuperStrand LT hoodie. And I just thought it was really fascinating. It's 100% synthetic polyester, and they're calling it Vertical X SuperStrand insulation that mimics 700 to 800 fill down. And then obviously the shell of the jacket is just a ripstop poly material, but the synthetic polyester really got me going.
I mean, it's also it's really cool to see. This is obviously, I think a lot of us are looking for, or have always looked for, a synthetic insulation that can actually rival down in terms of the properties that it inherently has. And we've been waiting for some company out there, and we've also tried to work on it ourselves to come up with something that is in the 700 to 800 fill power range, and that just really hasn't existed. It's starting to pop up, but it's exciting to see stuff like that. Maybe one day we can have something that's like 900 fill, but it's also full eco, recycled, and then also keeps its warmth when wet, and that'd be sick. But this is really cool.
And I do think the weight of that jacket is 9.6 ounces, and it's by Outdoor Research. And speaking of outdoor research, something that we weren't planning on talking about, but I just remembered, is they just changed all their sizing. So they're actually going up to 3X to be more body inclusive to get everyone outdoors. So that will no longer be an issue when it just stops at like an extra large, but you're 6'7" or whatever. It's adding more diversity for the men's and the women's clothing, which is awesome.
Awesome. I just knew this was like, when we started talking about this, I was like, this has to be Outdoor Research. Like it just seems like they're always the ones, and among a few others, but they're always like pushing the boundaries on apparel and textile technologies. I'm definitely a little biased. I have like 4 pairs of pants that I wear all the time, and they're all Outdoor Research. So
you do
I'm the best,
and they look great on you.
Thanks. Everybody likes my butt in them.
Final piece of industry updates is we just finished our Maker Madness tournament. So we chose a bunch of fabrics to vote on which one you all thought was the winner of this past year. And the winner, drum roll.
That was a drum rolling.
That was Chewbacca. Either way, is Ultra 100 from Challenge Sailcloth.
Yay! I was gonna do the applause on the soundboard, but I can't change it.
Does it just say potato now?
Yeah, here we go.
Potato. Yeah, we were trying to learn the board and
Yeah.
might have included a few.
So shout out Hale and all the others at Challenge Sailcloth. You don't necessarily get anything for winning our Maker Madness, but bragging rights. So shout you out. It's a super cool fabric.
Yep, I like it. I like it a lot.
All right. Rolling on to the actual topic of the episode, which is like what we mentioned, our intro to DIY ebook. This is available now, so you can go to the show notes and click on it there. You can also go to our website and go to resources and click on ebooks there and find it there. You'll notice there's a bunch of other ebooks that we're in the process of creating, such as material guides for DCF, EcoPack, Ultra, XPack, as well as a Sewing 101 ebook. So a bunch more to come, just sort of teasing you there. But the one that you have access to right now is the intro to DIY. And we're sort of going to give a director's cut, if you will, to this ebook. We've all worked on this a lot. So our stories are in that ebook in some way, at least how it's produced. So now we'll actually kind of tell you our stories with that, but also some tips there. But let's start at the very beginning, which is, in order to make gear, you have to have a sewing machine. Well, I think for most gear, you have to have a sewing machine to do that. So unless you're hand sewing, or unless you're welding, which we also still need to do. Heat gun.
When you said what you need to do to make good gear or something, my brain was like, drink good beer immediately.
I've conditioned you. So let's start with the first part of a sewing machine. Is if you don't have one, you have to know where to find that. So we talk about sewing machines on page 11 of the ebook. So when you get there, go check that out. But we talked about where we found it in the past, but some tips on finding a good sewing machine.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this in previous podcasts, but for a while when I was first getting into DIY, I also got into refurbishing older sewing machines, especially like Singers from the like 30s through the late 50s. And a great place to find those is like in the basement of a loved one's house, or if not that, then like a thrift store. There's lots of stuff out there. I think there's a checklist in there somewhere where you can start to, once you find one, you can go down the list of things that we have to make sure that, like, okay, this turns on, or this, when I turn the flywheel, it doesn't make a crunching sound that is off-putting.
So let's talk about that. Page 15 is a sewing machine inspection list, something you can take with you to a store. What's it called? Thrift store. Thanks. Thrift store to try and identify a good machine. So we do mention that, but let's talk about the things that you actually need in a sewing machine. Quick story. I remember when I got my first machine given to me, somebody else was moving overseas, so they were just getting rid of stuff in their house. And I remember telling Carter, I'm like, dude, this thing's really cool. Like, it's really nice. He's like, oh, like, what does it have? What makes it really nice? I was like, dude, it's got like 100 stitches. He's like, I couldn't name 100 stitches. Like, what is that? I'm like, oh, it's got like quilting stitches. You can do like leaves and letters and like the super intricate, like, roundabout stuff. And he's like, I don't want to crush your joy. Those are all entirely useless. You need 2 stitches. So other than a straight and zigzag stitch, what does a machine actually need to be useful for DIY?
I think you need to have a machine that also has enough power to get through some of the thicker stuff. And most machines are going to be fine for that. Heavy duty, like the heavy duty Singer that we recommend, and it's recommended in the ebook probably. The 4423, 4411, that series is called heavy duty, but it doesn't mean that it has like some massive motor. Most stuff is going to be fine. But I alluded to this when you asked the question of the first thing I ever made is my wife Ashley had like this blue, like make a sewing machine.
Like an easy bake oven for sewing machines.
You press like the gas pedal. I don't know what it's called. I call it the gas pedal. You press the gas pedal and it's like, and then it starts. You don't want that.
Yeah.
You want it to be able to go through like spacer mesh if that can fit, or a few layers of heavier ripstop or webbing to make some tree straps for your hammock. I think you're looking for that.
One of the really cool features that my first sewing machine had is like the presser foot release. So it would go up to the normal height like any sewing machine, but then you could push the lever up like another 1/4 to 1/2 inch to give you like just an extra 1/4 to 1/2 inch of space to get stuff under the presser foot, which I found with with making gear is really helpful. Sometimes if you're sewing something that thick, you have to like hand crank it, but still helpful.
So you have a sewing machine now. You've gone to a thrift store, you found one, bought one. It works really great. Just a few tips on maintaining. I mean, like just basic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting one from a thrift store, you want to follow the checklist, which I definitely recommend you go through because it'll be super helpful. I wish that I had that. I did literal days of research to figure out stuff that if somebody had a list like this would have saved me a lot of time. But go through that list, and if there's like 1 or 2 things that you're like, oh, this like maybe sounds a little dry or whatever, you can likely, if you're mechanically inclined, you can definitely do that yourself. You can look up YouTube videos. If you also follow the list and find a model or like a maker name that's popular, like Brother Singer, Janome, I don't know how you say that. Any of those, you'll be able to find that information, or you can take it to a local like vac and sew place or a sewing place, and they can give you a basic tune-up, and then from then on, they'll give you instructions on what you should do. If it's an older machine, you probably just need to clean it and oil it.
Yeah, a lot of the newer is in like the last 10 years probably machines. If you get one of those name brands that Carter was just talking about, you can probably find a user's manual online. And most of the time in that user's manual, it'll show you like, ports on the machine to oil and like regular maintenance, things like that.
The other reason I recommend older machines is because modern machines like that, unless there's certain brand names like Sailrite or something, which is like semi-industrial, they're like lifetime parts. So you can't service them, which is why I don't prefer them. They're fine it'll be fine depending on how much you make, but if you can find something that's older, it will last. It's already lasted for 75 years and it will last for another 75, which I just think is really cool.
So personal question, how often do you actually clean your sewing machine?
Like dust it or clean it?
Like more than just wiping the dust off the top, but like taking some things apart and like getting in there.
I feel like every time I sew, I make sure and look at I don't want to call it the undercarriage. The part where my bobbin lives tends to collect a lot of dust, and I never thought about de-dusting my machine until we did one of these about a year ago, and I was like, I don't think I've ever done that. So now it's just something that when I have my machine out, I look at the hatch and I just take the little dusty brush and swabber.
For everybody in the Triangle area, shout out Aaron from Capital Sew and Quilt. He'll hook you up with a good machine. But yeah, he also reminded me that I just straight up don't clean my machine enough. I mean, I haven't sewn enough recently, period. The last probably 2 months been pretty chaotic. But even before that, he said that. I'm like, yeah, that's a problem. I should work on that.
I think too, especially if you're working with certain materials that tend to pill. I was sewing a lot of like velvet. I mean, obviously, if you're working with these synthetic materials that don't shed a lot, it's probably more of a different story, but still good to get into the habit, especially if you haven't used it in a while, to just brush it off. Because usually when you do one project, you're doing like a few or one big project, and you should just take that habitual maintenance and maintain it.
I don't really maintain my machine. Well, I mean, I clean it just like Avery said. It's just that, how do I say this without sounding like an elitist piece of garbage? I have an industrial sewing machine in my house, so like I don't need to oil it because it has an automatic oil pump that circulates oil throughout, and so I don't really have to do anything. But I still try to. Another side of the maintenance is also like maintaining the stuff that goes with the machine, like checking the thread and making sure it's not like split apart, making sure that you change your needle before every large project. Something that when we were in our old place that we all could have done more. Like if you're sewing a bag made of X-Pac UVX40 or Venom, that's like literal just destroying the needle. It's like flat basically, and you're like, I wonder why the thread's not being taken up anymore. It's like, yeah, because there's just a small piece of metal left where the needle once was. But also paying attention to that stuff that's tangential to the machine is important.
I don't remember what episode number it is, but we talked to Aaron, and he had a bunch of good sewing maintenance or sewing machine maintenance advice on that episode. So look back to like episode
26.
No, it's like episode 15 or something.
I just said a number.
Pre-20, I think. Pretty sure. But anyway, yeah, go check that out. All right. So you have a sewing machine. We know how to do that. Let's talk sewing machine or sewing tools, like your DIYer's toolkit that we call it around here a lot. When you start out, there's only a few things that you need, and those are all listed in ebooks. We don't have to go over those too much, but you are going to need scissors to cut some fabric. You're going to need a lighter so you can melt the ends of your cord, or whatever. Well, thread. Yeah, you will need to buy some thread. You can all see all the stuff in the ebook, and most of you, if you have heard of sewing, you're going to know probably roughly what you're going to need. But what is a piece of kit that you really, really like, or that you now need to have that a beginner might also benefit from?
So this is, I would probably call this my tip of the week. Tip of the week. And I would say that a bodkin is just, that sounds like a weird name. I promise that's what it's called. I never knew it had a name, but it's basically like anytime you need to thread something through a channel or through like a buttonhole or whatever, it's like a way that you can capture cord or elastic or a narrow good and then pass it through that channel. So like anytime you make a stuff sack or a drawstring or a cuff, that's going to have some elastic
hood, a waistband.
Yeah, it's just so much easier than like the old fashioned ways to take a not a clothespin. What are those things called?
Safety pin.
Safety pin, and like clip it in and try to feed it through, and you can't feel the safety pin, and then it falls off. Then you scream, and then you get kicked out of your house, and your parents make you sleep outside for your bad attitude. Like you don't want to do that. So bodkin for me, it's just get one. I think you can buy. There's like two. You want a flexible one too. They have some like hard ones or whatever that you don't want to use, because normally when you're feeding through a channel, it's around something that's not just a straight line made of wood. So you need to have some flexibility to move around the corners, but definitely pick those up. Probably on Amazon for like $6.
Oh yeah, we don't carry those yet, do we?
I don't know if we do or not, but we definitely will. So you can probably pick them up. Not by the time you're hearing this, but sometime soon. Bodkins.com. Bodkins.com/ripstock on the roll.
Page 17 is the DIY toolkit. See the bodkin there. Isaac, what's your tool of choice or necessary tool?
I think this one's probably obvious for everybody, but I can't sew without tweezers. I hate trying to thread the needle without tweezers because I got some fat fingers and
Muscular fingers.
Muscular, dude. Don't shame yourself.
Either way, they're big and the thread is small. So yeah, I just like having tweezers.
Yeah. You actually taught me that for sure. I never ever saw tweezers used before you came to work here. And I'll admit there's a time or two where I pull them out.
The reverse action, that's the one we sell, right?
Yeah.
The reverse action tweezers as well. Also, Isaac, full credit. I had never sewn with tweezers either until talking with you. And the reverse action ones are like, they're always closed. And when you need to open them, you squeeze them together instead of the other way. And it makes it to where if you're like need to hold the thread and pass it through the needle, it just automatically holds it. So I don't have muscular fingers, so mine get tired. So it really helps to have it do it for you.
Avery, your tool of choice.
I was gonna say something real quick about the tweezers. Is if
Go for that.
you start playing with that serger, tweezers actually are part of a serger toolkit because you have to. There's like this one any slidey outy part, and you literally can't get your fingers behind it to thread it. So that's something that comes with the serger. I thought that was fun. The thing that I can't live without is one of those rotary cutters. I just think they're super simple. The blades are super cheap. They're easy to replace when they get dull. I don't have like a knife block. I'm not about to like sharpen my fiskars, if we're going to be honest. So for me, it's easier to change out the blade. It retracts, it glides. It's much easier for me than chomping with real scissors.
That's something that early on, I thought you had either or, like I thought there were scissors or a rotary cutter, and there's definitely a really good place for both, but I always prefer to use a rotary cutter now just because it is so smooth. Like if you have your right angle measuring stick or whatever.
And if you make yourself a cardboard template ever, that's what I do. It's really easy to guide around that. So I'm not having to draw out the pattern and then cut it out. I just put my homemade cardboard template and then I go around it. It's nice.
Yeah.
Around your fingers.
Mhm.
It's like the turkey.
I haven't lost one yet.
What is the turkey?
You know when you're in elementary school and follow your hand to draw the turkey?
Elementary school? Yeah, that's the last time I made one.
You're 6 or 7, I don't know.
Days ago.
My tool recommendation is thread snips. Like get good thread snips or small scissors. I know this, like I've told the story before, but I still think it's relevant. When I was early on sewing, I didn't have thread snips or small scissors. I just had big scissors. And I didn't know my machine had like one of those thread snips on the side. You know, like the little razor on the side you can cut it. I didn't know I had that either. So I was like cutting the thread with big scissors. And let's just say there was more than one occasion where I accidentally cut the corner off my project. So I was going to like cut the thread and I just cut off the whole corner of my project, which is embarrassing. But also, you know what has really helped that? Thread snips. So I don't do that anymore.
I like thread snips. At one point, I think we told this story before too, but whatever. I bought like 48 different kinds of thread snips, like every one of them. And me and Jameson just like tested all of them. We like got in not a real argument, but a friend argument where he really hated one pair of them and they were my favorite.
That's still ongoing.
Yeah.
I still hate those.
I stabbed them in your car seat. They're out there right now.
Those are
Be
terrible.
careful sitting down.
All right. So if we're following the timeline, people now have a sewing machine and the tools to start sewing. We started. Did you start with your stuff sack a kit, or is that like?
No, there were no kits when.
Yeah, there were no kits at all, really.
There were no kits.
Wow.
I don't think.
You started kind of in the dark ages, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, hammock forums at the time was extremely, extremely helpful. Like that's where I learned
everything.
I mean, that's how I started making stuff, is because I wanted to like sew hammock gear and stuff, and everybody on there was so helpful. There were still, now you can go back and look in all the archives of all the different stuff, a ton of a ton of like kits that now exist today, and even full products are all inspired by DIYers from hammock forums, whether it's certain types of netted bug nets or like a double-ended stuff sack, or there's just lots of stuff that started from there. So that was very helpful to me. So I wouldn't call it the Dark Ages, but it certainly wasn't Enlightenment.
Makes sense. Yeah. So a huge tip for new makers, we are a company, so we do have to try to make money. So this is a more or less shameless plug, but we sell kits now. For anybody that doesn't know, DIY kits to help you get started doing your DIY thing. And they are very, very helpful. I think still one of the worst parts, the most difficult parts for especially new makers is cutting out your own pattern and making sure you have all the right pieces and all the right components. And a kit puts all those things in one bag that shows up to your house, and you just make that thing. And it comes with directions, and it comes with, you can use the help center for tips or whatever. Like it's all in one. So it makes that process way easier.
And generally there's really good content that Jameson has, and we all have, but Jameson's the master director behind a lot of those content videos, and Isaac's the star of the show. So that's very helpful too. Like when I first started making, paper instructions are fine. They could kind of work, but when you're first starting out, if you can have a video that you can pause and go back and watch and see like, oh, okay, that's what he's doing with the machine, or that's how that stitch is supposed to work, it's invaluable. I don't think I would be making the stuff that I've made without YouTube videos of some sort.
Can you click mark for me really quick, Tim? Every time your hand touches the microphone, it makes sounds. I know it's hard, just FYI.
Is that loud?
It's not loud.
Yeah.
Just disruptive.
How about this? Is that good?
Yeah. All right.
So I don't even get to say any of that?
No, we'll keep that. We'll just stop it when you stop.
This world sucks.
And go.
Yep.
So you made yours for college, so that definitely wasn't a kit.
Yep.
Kind
of like I had order of operations, and like
okay,
it was guided for the most part.
I see. Yeah. So. How did you design your pajama pants?
McCall's, baby. Just one of those paper patterns.
Yeah.
I think it was the standard project. It was like that, and then a square Eurosham. So
what is a Eurosham?
A Eurosham. Well, it's like a fancy term for a large pillow that goes on your bed that you probably bug your wife about. Why do we have so many pillows? They're Euroshams.
My wife is very like interior.
That's not what I was thinking at all.
What did you think it was? Just
I had no idea. I was like, is that an apparel item or what?
You thought it was like a cloak or something?
I imagine a Eurosham being like a handkerchief for some reason. I don't know why. I was just imagining like a 12 by 12.
You know the chrome dome umbrella that everybody has now? The reflective umbrella.
Oh yeah.
That's made by like Light Trek, or the brand is like Eurosherm or something like that. So I was like,
sure.
You made it an umbrella out of?
That's impressive. That's really impressive. Yeah.
No, but there's a lot that you can do with just regular patterns that have been sold since the 1960s, where you go to the big cabinet in Joann's or Hobby Lobby or wherever, and you like pull out the drawers, and then there's just like files of them. It's pretty easy in a simple way if you pick something, and then you can kind of go from there, especially for making apparel. I've always heard PJ Pants is like the beginning DIY project for that. So
I just realized that I lied. The first thing that I ever sewed was not a stuff sack.
Okay.
Liar.
Boxers.
Really?
Yeah, because I took teen living in high school, or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And no, whatever it was called. I think it's called teen living.
Home ec.
That was what my parents called it, but it was no longer called that anymore.
I had home ec.
Yeah, well, I'm from a better part of the South. I don't know.
You're from Etowah, dude.
yeah, I'm actually. Anyways, boxers. But I was like, this is so stupid. I'm not doing this. And there was like people in my class that were my friends that like sewing. I was like, hey, you want to make mine for you? I'll like get you a drink from the vending machine. And then they just made my boxers. They looked great. They were basketballs patterns.
So it was the first thing you made.
So
I sewed part of it, and then I was like, this is kind of hard. Like,
So you've been doing that since middle school? Getting people to do things for you and offering them drinks from the vending machine?
Well, nowadays it's called management, but back then it was.
Oh, yeah, that's what it's called. Okay.
Tim's over.
But yes, I have. And if you haven't done it, I highly recommend it because it tends to work.
It was just PJ pants that were just cropped off into
but it didn't have a fly, which is I wore them once. You can do anything. Anything's possible if you just believe.
So you might do it.
But yeah. So, anyways, didn't mean to lie, but I did make a pair of boxers.
Nice. So this is actually going to be my tip of the week here.
Tip of the week.
That's so cringe.
That's awesome.
My tip of the week is I recommend that you get our DIY kit, a DIY kit that feels approachable to you, but then also just get like a yard of fabric that you can just ruin. I think for me, one of the most important things was just messing stuff up. Like some of those first sewing projects and just kind of not really knowing what I was doing, but going in anyway was very instrumental to then figuring things out. I really like kits now because they're pre-cut, very, very nice. But initially I recommend doing it that way because you want something that you're actually proud of that can be finished and be functional, and then something that you can just rip up, ruin, mess up a stitch, screw up the buckle, whatever you want, and have it not really matter, because there's also a huge value to just practicing doing it and not feeling any concern about making it good or not.
Yeah, so excellent point. I totally agree. The $10 DIY box kit thing that we sell is literally that, right? It's like a bunch of different fabrics of different weights with some different cordages and some different plastic attachments. So you can kind of mess around, sew different stuff. And also something that's really important if you're going to make outdoor gear in our category is trying out the different weights of the actual materials that people use. So going to Joann's, you're probably going to get one specific type of ripstop. It's going to be a 70D, like slightly PU coated. And that's like the only synthetic they have. So the $10 box, I think it's free shipping too. And you can it's like 5 or 6 fabrics or something like that. And yeah, so definitely do that.
Yeah.
So you can just put the gas pedal down to the ground and see what happens. Everybody does. I don't know if you guys remember the first time you did that on the sewing machine. You're like really scared and you're like, you know what? I'm going to do it. You just like press it.
I was going to mention one quick thing about the DIY kits is that they come with everything that you need except for thread. Don't forget to add thread to your cart when you check out, and to make it easy, just order like a few different colors. So when you have another project, you're not like, oh, I need a $3 thread. But yeah, don't forget the thread and don't forget your needles.
Yeah, that's a great point. What are some other, so the $10 DIY kit, we do mention in the ebook, you can look that up. We'll link it in the show notes. All the stuff that we mentioned, just go to the bottom of the show notes and we'll see it there. But a few other kits, just, I don't remember all of them. Throw off the top of your head.
DZP kit, which is the Dcf Zipper Pouch Kit. The ZPK kit, which is the same zipper pouch kit, but in Hyper D300. The ZPP kit, which is a zipper pack pouch kit, which can be had in 210D grid stop, 2.2 hex 70, and some other materials that I don't know off the top of my head. That's a really awesome one. It's like a DOP kit, basically. If you want to work with some of the composite materials, there's a few Dyneema composite fabric kits. Fanny pack kit's really cool. There's lots of them that are all kind of in the same category. And yeah, if you look at the photos and stuff, you'll get an idea of the size of the project as well as the amount of component. They all have a list of components, so you can be like, I don't know if I want to try double zipper pulls yet. I want to stick with like a small wallet. But any of those are basically all the same skills.
Totally. I'm also going to give another plug for Trail Days, which we're going to this year. Super exciting. Be there May 13th, 15th. I'll keep it sort of vague, but we're going to be giving away some really cool stuff that may or may not include a really rad kit. So if you're coming to Trail Days, keep an eye out for that. And also in the future, we will be carrying a stuff sack kit for new makers. So keep an eye out. The $10 DIY kit will basically do it for you now. But this new kit will add to this whole journey. In terms of great fabrics to work with, really cheap ones. This is also in the ebook, but for those of you listening, Hyper D300, very cheap per yard, great fabric to work with, 1.9 Ripstop Nylon, and then 1.1 Ripstop Nylon. All three of those are phenomenal fabrics that are very, very cost effective for being high quality and giving you an assortment of projects that you can work on with those.
I'd also say try getting something that's super slippery too, like a sil nylon or sil poly. You could do like 1/6 or lower, just to get a feel for like what those super slippery fabrics feel like while you're sewing. because it's going to change. Like if you're used to sewing HG 300, going to 1.1 sil poly is going to be very different.
Brutal. Yeah, and I believe the $10 box, not to say $10 box for the 90th time, but it's there for that reason, right? Is I believe there should be like a heavier weight pack fabric, a lighter weight breathable kind of hammock fabric, and then I think 1.1 sil poly is in there for that reason, because the first time you sew that, if you've never touched it, you're like, I thought I knew what I was doing, and I don't.
I still don't know if I could successfully sew with one sil poly.
Oh, you can, dude.
I have a little bit. I have that super rad bivvy that I made.
Dude, that thing's pretty cool. We got in it together. We'll put that picture in here. Yeah.
I made this. I tried to make a 1-person bivvy. I had some adventures that fell through that I wanted to make a bivvy for, and I had in mind, and I made it like with a bathtub floor and a bug net and like a central zipper, and I was like, I'm going to oversize it a little bit so I can put stuff in there, and I made it so I could put my ultralight tarp over it as well. That happens to be made out of 1/6 Hyper D and 2/2 Hex 70. Neither of those are PU coated in my case, by the way. So I made like this super rad bivvy and everything, and I pulled it out for Carter like a year later after I made it, because like I said, the adventures fell through, so never I'm using it. And we were in my living room laying it out, and we both crawled in there collectively. So it's actually an emergency 2-person bivvy.
There was still space, but then we kind of got stuck and we couldn't like find the zipper, and I started to freak out a little bit. It is waterproof though, so my tears just kind of fell to the bottom. Yeah.
Up at the bottom.
Speaking of needing help, some resources for your DIY journey.
Whoa, holy segue.
Hey.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
I'm a hoverboard type of guy, but I like segways too.
So there is a button in the top left corner of our website on the pre-navigation bar called, I think it says Help Center. That is a really great button for anybody there. It'll be linked in the show notes as well. But there you can send a message and say, hey, the sil poly is getting eaten by my machine. What am I doing wrong? And get some sort of tip. Or, hey, I'm looking to make a backpack with these particular things. What would you recommend? And we have a bunch of super rad people. Not this guy. He will not answer any of your questions ever.
That's not true. I want to
answer all of them. I'm joking.
Oh.
No, Carter often answers a lot of these, as well as a guy named Justin, who we have on staff. Bunch of really rad people that are makers that are very experienced. They're answering your questions. So if you have curiosity or if you need help, then it's people like Carter answering these things, which is a really helpful resource. So that's one place you can go to get some answers.
We are here for you.
There are some other cool places that you mentioned, like hammock forums. There's a lot of great forums out there. Our MYOG, some other form,
Backpacking Light.
Backpacking Light's a great forum. A lot of people are making really rad gear, and you can find it out there. We're trying to be a hub you can come to one place, but there's a lot of other really great information. Not to say that we're the only people that have that information.
Reddit also has a thread. It's MYOG, and they have over 100,000 members. And if you're just curious about sewing machines, you can use the search function. You can just type in sewing machine. It'll bring up every thread where someone has literally been in the same place, had the same question, had the same thought about a specific machine or what machine to suggest for a certain project. So that's extremely helpful for beginners. It's also for your career as an MYOGer.
Yeah, and then we mentioned the ebooks. This is a free download on our website, and there will be a lot more to come. The Sewing 101 is the kind of other starter pack ebook that will work in there. We'd love to say that there'll be more in the future, and we have plans for other ones. So check out our resources and other stuff. We make videos. There are blog posts out there, instructional videos. So a ton of stuff that we produce as well.
And our YouTube videos, which now that we have a semi-permanent production space, we'll be getting more out.
Yeah. Soon. This is our studio, in case you guys couldn't tell. It's really rad. For those of you listening, we actually have like sound foam and stuff up and a real table. It's really rad. Isaac and Avery, you guys don't have a tip of the week yet. Do you have something that you want to make your tip of the week?
I'm saving up for a really good one.
My tip of the week is if you are interested in listening to the uncut version of the podcast, meaning the entire probably hour-long podcast, go to the YouTube. You'll get like all the silly bits. If you want like the quick 30-minute version that is anywhere you can listen to the actual podcast. I think we failed to mention that a few times. So all the uncut versions are going on YouTube. We are trying to do a better job at editing down just the juicy information for the podcast actual series. But if you can't get enough of us, head on over to YouTube and leave us a review, because we read all of them, all 3 reviews we've ever gotten. So if you can read them, if you can leave us a review, that would be awesome.
If you can read, you should leave us a review. That's your
even if you can't, just figure it out. We need reviews.
That's true.
So that was Avery's
tip of the week. I die a little bit inside every time I hear that.
I get happier. I think it's awesome.
It's awesome.
Tip of the week.
Oh, look, Tim's getting button happy over here.
Making me cry.
Isaac, by the way, you don't actually have to bank them. You don't get 2 next episode. You still only get
like,
1.
He's saving his for like next week, which then it'll be gone.
Actually, I am going to have 2 tips of the week next week.
Oh, okay. All right. This is a one-time thing, though.
Well, get ready. Speaking of next week, which is actually 2 weeks from now, April 27th, we release episode 42, which is part 2 of our How to MYOG series with Tim Martino from Learn MYOG. You might recognize him from Learn MYOG. That is the real guy. It's him. And we're going to have him on the episode. He'll be on Zoom because he's like 2,000 miles away or something. But we'll have him on here with us and talking about the fears of MYOG and a little bit about his story being kind of a How to MYOG tutor for everybody.
I'm really excited to listen to that one too, because I see a lot of the stuff that he's making and the help that he's giving a lot of people that are on Reddit MYOG, and even somebody like me, like seeing some of the apparel patterns and stuff that he's making are inspiring to me. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say for sure.
He's a super cool guy. So tune in 2 weeks, episode 42. Between now and then, go catch up on other episodes, make lots of gear, drink good beer, have a jolly old time. Don't forget.
Never
No,
forget.
actually, it's this one.
Tip of the
Oh, wait,
week.
sorry. Nope, it's this one.
And remember, make good gear, drink good beer.
That's right. Like, subscribe, share.
Thank you for
Thanks,
listening.
everybody.
We appreciate you guys a lot.
Desperately. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Potato. Potato.